Hey everybody, and welcome to Element 21. Today we're talking all about greed. This one kind of really got me stirred up a little bit when I was doing my definitions and my workbook, and I really started looking at where this is important to me. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and do the definitions. Selfish and excessive desire for more of something than is needed. Eager, that's another definition of it, which I was kind of surprised by. Selfish desire for wealth or possessions and overwhelming urge to have more of something, usually more than you need. And this last one, uncontrollable longing for increase in the accumulation of material gain. I think that a few things, if you typically, we think of greed as excessive of something at the expense of others. And that's where the shadow comes in my mind, is that I want this money so these people don't have money, or I want this money so that I'll have more than anybody else, or I want more food, or I want a bigger house. And it's in proportion to others. And I think that that's part of the shadow aspect of this, is looking at accumulation of things in terms of inequality, which is another one of our elements, and hierarchy, having more, having less. And the other thing that I find interesting about most of these definitions is they refer to more than you need. Well, if we were all in wholeness and all recognizing that we have access to everything that's available in the universe, then we don't need anything. So accumulation of something more than what you need is kind of that definition falls away, because you don't need anything. So anything you have would be considered greed then. Okay. The other thing that really got me thinking in this particular element is, we talk about greed in terms of like money or food or material things, but what if we had an uncontrollable longing for an increase in happiness? Is that so bad? Or an uncontrollable longing for an increase in love, or even charity. It really has more to do with the judgment of the motivation behind the longing for something. So if you had a longing for attracting your soulmate, I don't think anybody would consider that greed, but it follows the definition of a deep longing or desire for the accumulation of something. Now, maybe if you wanted like 10 soulmates, that's greed, but one, that's not greed. So this one I found really kind of quirky and kind of not clear cut like a lot of them are for myself. Greed as far as money. Okay, let's reframe that in terms of, what if everybody, like I want to accumulate this massive wealth just like I want it for everybody else. Is that greed? Or is that just abundance for everybody? I think a lot of these, once you step out of the hierarchy and you step out of the inequality and you step out of the selfishness that is implied in all these definitions, then it takes that shadow aspect out of it. So I think that this one is clearly subjective, which I think most of these are, as well as it's relative what you're talking about. So greed in general is a longing for something, and we've used that in this separation for means of propulsion, means for motivation, means for manipulation. And I mean, we've talked on practically every element about the manipulation through the shadow aspect, and actually through the light aspect, which gives it its shadow. So I'm really not sure that we can just like all of these say, oh yeah, this one's purely shadow, which is, you know, the point of this entire course is to take a look at the light aspect of greed. Or so I think the opposite, which we already know, is selflessness. And I think that, you know, obviously we're going to talk more about that, but it's all it all gets very nebulous when we start blurring the lines between the shadow and the light, and, you know, bringing in the grays. And with greed, I think that it's easier to gray, at least for myself, and looking at how you define it through the need factor, like we've already talked about, and the inequality and the hierarchy of me having more than you. And another one is the belief that there's a finite amount of resources in the universe, and that if my uncontrollable desire to accumulate means that others have less, that's greed. But if we remember that there's an infinite source of everything, then each of us can accumulate uncontrollably massive amounts of whatever it is that we desire. And would that bring about judgments of greed because no one's suffering because of it? So greed as a tool is, I see it as it can be used as a motivating factor, which we've already talked about. The desire for a bigger car, the desire for a bigger house, the desire for more salary, to be able to travel and do the things that bring me joy. I don't really consider any of those greed until you bring in, well, I want this, so you can't have it. And that's where we, again, echo that big shadow. And if we come to such a blanket judgment about greed, then it becomes a tool for self-judgment when you find yourself longing for something, longing for the accumulation of more money, for instance, to be able to travel and to bring yourself those pleasures. And then that again turns something that's not necessarily a shadow into a shadow simply because you judge it as such. Versus, I work hard, I deserve a vacation. Versus, I think anyone who takes a vacation is greedy, or anyone who takes a vacation to this place or in that manner is greedy. So there's so many facets to greed, and I think that it's not clearly as shadow-ridden as I originally thought, based on all the conversations that I've just discussed. But in thinking back to times when I've expressed the judgment of greed, looking back on those and working through my workbook, it's really interesting to see how different I feel about it now, and how I see it as such an opportunity for growth, and such an opportunity to expand my understanding of where I was as well as where others were. And it really comes to such a nicer balance. So in keeping that in mind, let's go ahead and read our clearing statement. I remember and accept all aspects of greed as perfect and part of the whole picture of my divine creation. I now allow this to holographically come together in completion and resolution with ease and flow, and gratitude for the lessons it's provided and are now complete. So let's go ahead and sit back. Take that nice deep breath, close your eyes, get comfortable. Mm. And let's join together outside of space and time in wholeness and oneness. And now we set our intentions to connect into that vibration of the statement that I just read. And from here, we call it home. And from here is where we live and create. Okay. Another deep breath. Boy, that was really rich, really full. Lots going on within that one. I kept seeing I don't know why this one really, I kept thinking of dimensions as in like 3D, 2D. And, when you travel in space, it's three dimensionals and there's three coordinates. And I was thinking that each one of these elements within this course adds another dimension. And it's like, okay, so we're up to the 21st dimension, and imagine the coordinates and the complexities and the richness and the experience that we have. And it just was just so incredible and so awe-inspiring. So that's what I kept saying, and that if we experienced and wished greed for all, would it be greed? And I can't help but coming back to that inequality and the hierarchy and have not. So that's what I saw. Post-video affirmation. I acknowledge and accept all aspects of greed as perfect and part of the whole picture of my divine creation with ease, joy, and love. And I think this one's going to be fun. I think this one's fun to focus on and even to go back and do that clearing again. I think it'd be different every time I did it. So I hope you got some good insight out there, and please do fill out your workbook. And if you come up with anything that you'd like to share, don't forget we have our Facebook group. It's awesome. And what a great place it's private and great place to share with others who are doing the same thing. So thanks again for joining today. And the next element will be selflessness. We'll see you there. Bye-bye.